Who here wants to be a jujitsu master? No one. I think we're going to do a quick react video. Okay, so let's see what this is.
The Joe Rogan experience.
With this, there were a ton of kids along the way growing up as I was building my business that would say, oh, I'm not into this. I'm not into that. Kind of like you described yourself.
Yeah.
And they don't do anything because they're
Right.
looking for that thing. And I would argue, do something. Do fucking something until you find that thing.
Yeah, I've never been that kid though. I've always been into things. I always was into art, or I was into something. I always found things that I was interested in. Just none of them seemed like they were normal things that other people wanted to do for a living, like the path, like a career path.
Right.
And if their parents are living a bullshit life and their neighbors live in a bullshit life and most of their family lives a bullshit life,
I don't understand why
they just fucking lay
to
around, you know, and then they seek refuge in drugs or video games or
Ah,
something
there
that
it is.
stimulates them. And video games are a real problem. They're a real problem. You know why? Because they're fucking fun.
Addictive.
And you don't. Yeah. Well, I have a real problem with them. And you do them, and they're real exciting, but you don't get anywhere.
Right.
It's like you could do like martial arts, right? You could learn jujitsu. You get obsessed by jujitsu, and then 3 years later, you're like an elite jujitsu athlete. You're entering in competitions. You're a purple belt.
You're moving up.
Yeah, you're doing well. You're thinking like, I might be able to open my own school one
You
day.
got confidence.
Yeah, if I have 100 students and those 100 students are paying me X amount of dollars per month, I can make a living. Holy shit, I can have this would be amazing.
I have children.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a point, but
it's a big battle in the house.
Yes.
And my kids, I don't know if you're.
so I'm going to pause for a second. So like, I think he has a point, but the thing here is that you can't, the whole issue is that you can't just stop playing video games and start doing jujitsu, right? Like that's the difference between the two paths, but the question is how? Like how? Right?
You're going through this, but my kids are now saying, "Well, Dad, this guy made all this money with this video game. That he's
That's
a man."
real too. That's
right?
real too now.
So like that's 1 in a billion, kid.
I don't know if it's 1 in a billion, but you know, look, I heard the same argument about comedy. My own parents were like, "Do you know how few people make it as a comedian?" I was like, "Okay, does anybody make it? Somebody makes it, right? They figure out how to do it. They make a living. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Just stop." Like,
So I gotta, let's talk about this for a second. Damn it, I can't find it. So we're actually writing a paper at HealthyGamer about the statistics of going pro. And our paper analyzes esports earnings. And I was trying to find a couple of graphs. So what we did is we looked at 8 esports, looked at the total player base, the total number of pros, and tried to figure out what is the percentage that you go pro. And then out of the professional players, what percentage of professional players earn prize pool? So this is like some of the stuff that we're learning. So I just know some of the statistics off the top of my head. I literally can't find the paper in my various Google Drives right now. But so there are like 10 million people who play Dota 2. Maybe there are 30 million accounts or something like that, but 10 million active players. There are 3,357 professional Dota players. So what is that? 3 out of 10,000 is the chances of going pro. Out of the 3,357 professional Dota players, can you guess what percentage of players earn what percentage of the prize pool? What percentage of players earn what percentage of the prize pool? So it turns out that 2% of players earn 98% of the prize pool in professional Dota. And so this is interesting, right? Because like these guys are talking about, so kids want to go pro, and then they say it's 1 in a billion, which is like, you guys actually have no idea. Like no one knows. That's the whole fucking problem, is that there's a crop of people like our community, right? Some of who want to be successful streamers and some of who want to be like successful pro gamers. And so like one of the biggest deficiencies that we see in HealthyGamer, because it's about HealthyGamer, it's not you shouldn't do that. It's that, hey, you guys should make informed decisions. That's what we're about. We're about understanding. We're saying if you want to go pro, what are the statistics? Arm yourself with information. And then decide. So, yep. And so one person says prize pool isn't much of the money that professional players make, to be honest. Absolutely correct. So that is a huge shortcoming of our research, right? And the problem there is that like that information is not publicly available. So our information does not look at salaries, does not look at sponsorships, because that's really hard to find. Those are all internal data. You can look at prize pools. But my guess is that generally speaking, salaries and sponsorships are going to correlate with prize pools. So I doubt that, like, you know, if you rank all of the pros in Dota from 1 to 3,357, my guess is that numbers 1,000 to 3,357, the vast majority of them, don't have a significant salary or significant sponsorships. The actual numbers, the amount that the people at the top make is going to be higher than the prize pool. Absolutely. Maybe by a significant amount. Absolutely. But still, the chances are that, like, you know, what is the likelihood that you end up in that top 2%? The other thing that we're looking at is what percentile, do you need to be to make $100,000 a year? So it's fine that, like, if you look at Dota, for example, like winning one tournament, you know, gives you like millions of dollars, and that's a huge chunk of the prize pool. But like, how successful do you need to be, and what percentile do you need to be to make essentially a living wage from esports? These are the kinds of random ass research projects that we have going on at Healthy Gamer, which I think allows us to make informed decisions about what these people are talking about. Yeah, so streaming too. So like we think that economic research is just as important so we do a lot of research. Anyway, let's finish watching video.
What I'm doing. I was real lucky that my parents were not around very much, so I didn't get much advice. So I figured it out myself. So there was no one telling me I couldn't do it.
Got it.
So
Greenfield.
I was like, I'm gonna find my way through this, and since no one's telling me it's impossible, no one's telling me I can't. Occasionally, I would hear someone say, "What are the odds?" I'm like, listen to this fucking loser. That's my thought was always like, that guy's a loser. Like, if you think like that, you're a loser. But there are kids that make a lot of fucking money playing video games. But the thing is, like, you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to play multiple video games, because the one video game that you get really good at, what are the odds that's going to be around 5 years from now?
Right.
You know, like, what's the big one now? Like Fortnite? Is that? Do they make money off of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's Call of Duty. They make money off that. What's the big money? StarCraft used to be the big one, right?
That, League of Legends, Counter-Strike.
Counter-Strike, it's still the Half-Life mod.
Yeah, variations of it have come
Dude,
out.
if you notice
Still
that Counter-Strike's a
basically the
Half-Life
same
mod,
exact
like
game.
map.
They don't make money off Quake, though, right? Not really.
Nah,
Quake.
not really.
True boomer.
One or two guys do, I think.
Yeah, see, it's you got to pick the right game. You know, you could be obsessed with the wrong
What are you
game.
going to do? You're going to spend 5-10 hours a day in that
You
house?
have to.
Right.
You would have to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that was bad. Like, those guys, I mean, it said good stuff. Right? Like, I mean, they've got a good point. So I think the issue is, like, what's the solution? So I was expecting them to say things that I would take issue with and be like, like, those guys don't fucking understand. But dude, the fact that, like, Joe Rogan knows that Counter-Strike is a mod for Half-Life, and even knows, like, do you guys even know what Quake is? Y'all even heard of Quake? Like, I haven't heard anyone talk about Quake in, like, a year. Like, no one talks like, look, can you even find Quake on Twitch? So, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think they've got a good point. So, like, here's the question, right? So Joe Rogan's saying a couple of things. One is he's saying, like, people weren't there to advise him otherwise. So that's kind of interesting, because then can we then assume that what he's saying is that, like, people should not advise people who want to go pro? So he's saying, like, his parents weren't around, so he was able to make a bad decision, which turned out to be good. So I'm confused about whether he thinks that principle is more broadly applicable. So the kids who want to go pro, is their road to success the same as his road to success, which is to ignore what everyone says and play video games? Because he seems to be saying the opposite, right? It's kind of weird. And so I'm not sure. And like he's saying, like, sure, you know, you can do jujitsu for 3 years or play video games for 3 years, and then like one is more valuable than the other. I don't think anyone's disputing that. I think the question is like how, right? So if I wake up every day and I mean, that's really the question that I like, that's the next question that needs to be asked, right? How do you do one instead of the other? And you know, that's what we struggle with as a community. It's like we know what we need to do. Like if I could give you guys a switch and I'd say like flip this switch and instead of playing video games for the next 3 years, you're going to practice jujitsu for the next 3 years. Like you guys would flip the switch, most of you, I imagine. Right? But then like how do you actually do it? Like it's not, I mean, the whole problem with our community is that we know what we need to do and we don't know how to do it. That's what we're here to address. I mean, some people are saying no. That's cool. I mean, I can respect that. I mean, people are saying no and people saying no. Yes. Most people are saying no, it looks like. So, I mean, you know, I think it's cool. Like, I think it's good that they're talking about this. I'm actually surprised that a couple of boomers, like the other boomer, you know, Graybeard, is Graybeard is the boomer term for boomer. So the other Graybeard still, I mean, they know their games. I'm surprised. Like most people who like are generally speaking in that generation don't know the difference between like Call of Duty and like the dude knows StarCraft and he knows Quake and shit like that. Like mad respect. You know? Was addicted to games? What happened? Okay. Fascinating. Oh, what would you do? Here we go. There's a poll. What does Sag mean?